Hello and good day, Welcome to the Super Good Camping Podcast. My name is Pamela.
I'm Tim.
And we are from supergoodcamping.com. We're here because we're on a mission to inspire other people to get outside and enjoy camping adventures such as we have as a family. Today's guests are a couple of campers from here in southwestern Ontario. They're big fans of nature and apparently each other. They do most of their camping in a canoe, a nice shiny new one, and they're working their way through Ontario's provincial parks. Tim and Thomas have enjoyed hanging out with them and watching presentations at the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Shows and spent a day working on their paddling certification. Tim and I had a lovely dinner with them on a backyard patio here in town during a torrential downpour. Please welcome Nate and Jen from Couple of Campers 905 on Instagram. Hey! Welcome. Hi, guys.
Thanks for
Long
coming
time
on the
no
chat.
see.
Yeah, it's been about less than 24 hours.
Yeah, just yesterday.
Yeah, so we just hung out with them at the Hamilton Outdoor Adventure Expo.
We did too, and then we actually didn't even get to chat with you guys at all last night at the after thing.
You were at the other end of the table.
It was full. It was definitely was full.
There was a good turnout. Next year it'll either be in that back room or it'll be somewhere that doesn't have a band.
Just not to disparage the live band, but it was a little loud for trying to talk.
Which is what
you guys were right
up
there too by the speaker.
Yeah, and deaf old guy with background noise like that. I just sat back and smiled.
Yeah.
Smile and nod.
So one of the things I noticed about your Instagram is that you're trying to paddle, I don't know all of them because that's a lot of parks, but a whole bunch of the Ontario parks. What's behind that?
So we've learned that there are non-operating provincial parks and then also operating provincial parks. So our goal is to overnight camp at all the operating provincial parks. So there's about 115 of those. So I think we've only gone about 12 officially.
Yeah, 12.
Because we've done different ones before we got married or before we met, but those don't count. So they have to be done together. And we have the rest of our lifetime to check off that bucket list of Ontario parks.
That's awesome. And so is it just backcountry of Ontario parks or front country camping as well?
Yeah, we're kind of doing it all. We're kind of doing some front country car camping on one side, and then we also get into the backcountry camping. Jen had a little bit more of a background in backcountry camping, so she kind of pointed us in the direction of a lot of the nice parks and things we can do.
So how did you get into backcountry camping, Jen?
My mom took, I have two brothers, so we did a couple trips with her when we were young, like 12. I was 12, so they would have been younger than me, and she took the three of us through Algonquin, through Acre.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a couple trips with her as I got older. You know, when you're a teen, you're kind of like, I don't want to hang out with my mom. That's not cool. But then when I got older, I went on a number of trips with her, Algonquin, French River. We just like to hang out back there in the quiet and sit in the sun and go canoeing and just enjoy nature together. So that's where I got the backcountry experience from.
And you dragged Nate kicking and streaming into that?
Yeah. He was more of a car camper when I met him and had never been in the backcountry. And our first experience he can tell you about.
Our first experience was kind of rough. It took me into Algonquin for our first trip ever, my first backcountry trip ever, and immediately just downpouring rain. Like, great way to start, right? You start off on the wrong foot. It was actually Ralph Bice Lake in Algonquin, so that was our first kind of big backcountry trip, and we did the paddle. We made it to the site. We got lost along the way, but we figured it out. But yeah, just kind of the whole time there, it didn't stop raining. We just experienced it was I think it was 2 days.
Yeah, it was just a quick Friday to Sunday, and there was a huge storm that weekend. It was in September, so it was also a little chillier.
Yeah.
And it was still, my first time without my mom, and she was kind of like the one that always did everything. So it was a learning curve for both of us. But we stayed dry and we survived. We were supposed to do a little loop through Daisy and then just back out, but because of the winds, we got stuck on the little peninsula island site that we were on.
Well, that's awesome. And you survived and you stayed together.
Yeah, and he wanted to come back.
And you went again.
It was a learning experience.
It can only get better after that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's all that happened.
It builds character, it builds resilience, it
That's
builds
it, yeah.
bonds, teamwork. It's awesome.
Very cool. So what are some other, so that's the first, you've had some successful trips. Share one of those.
Yeah, a bunch. So just this past summer, we just did Massasauga Provincial Park. We did a huge loop through that. I think we did what was it? Almost 70 kilometers.
Yeah, it looks a lot bigger than it is, because you look at the big map of the park, and we started at, I think it's Three-Legged Lake entry point. So we started there and just did a big loop all the way down to the bottom and then back up. So we were like, oh, that's gonna be so far, but it only ended up being 60 to 70 kilometer loop, and like we took a whole week to do it. We weren't rushed. We just enjoyed our time there and got to see all the different things. Like the Massasauga Park is pretty cool because there's different hiking spots, but they're only accessible by boat. So if you go to Algonquin, there's all those hikings on Highway 60. But this park, there's specific ones within the water that you had to canoe to get to. So those were pretty cool.
Yeah, nice and quiet too. Not a lot of people around, which was nice. It's really only the boaters that are making their way out there, whether you're in a motorboat or canoe. So you really get that feeling that you're on the trail almost by yourself, if not just one other person. It was really neat.
I think we weren't by ourselves because it was September, first week of September.
Yeah.
So everybody had gone back to school, back to work, kind of back to the routine. So that's when we typically like to go when it's quieter. And I think we were the only ones that hiked the one trail. There was nobody else out there. So at the time.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of, I take that Labor Day weekend and afterwards into account for a lot of our trip planning, because I don't want to be out with the throngs of people and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Massasauga is pretty busy during the summer, like with all the motorboat action in Georgian Bay. So we didn't really even see too many motorboats throughout the week there. We woke up one morning, there was some guys fishing in the little bay that we were staying at, but otherwise, honestly,
Yeah, it was.
yeah, picked the right spots too, that we weren't around a lot of other people as well.
Sweet. And nice sights and stuff?
Yeah, the only one that we could have done without would have been the channel, which was near a marina. I can't remember which marina, but it was the southern marina there. Pete's Place, maybe something.
Yeah,
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's like a channel there with some sites, and you get a lot of boat action back and forth through there. So that was pretty loud and busy even during the week.
And do you guys do fishing?
No.
No. So Jen and I both don't. We both don't eat fish, so it's kind of a hard sell for us. Like we've talked about, I think we're going to get into maybe just a little bit of like sport fishing, like for fun kind of thing. But unfortunately, we don't eat it. We wish we did, because I can see the value in going out and paddling and catching your own fish and cooking your own dinner. But it's just not in the cards for us.
Not yet. And then so you don't have to carry as much food because you just eat fish.
Well, exactly. And by day 6, fish is really, really friggin' good.
I can imagine. I can see it. Yeah.
Maybe we can learn how to scale a fish and suffer through it.
So what do you take for food?
Well, typically our backcountry trips are just like kind of weekend stuff. So we actually bring a lot of just fresh food that we can cook. This year we did our first dehydration meals on our own.
Yep.
So we got a dehydrator and we did a couple meals that way, but it's most of the dehydrated stuff after day 2 or 3.
Yeah, you can only get the steak or the chicken kind of first night, steak maybe second night, and then it starts to get a little iffy. So yeah, this past year we bought a dehydrator. We did butter chicken. So we did a nice butter chicken sauce in the dehydrator, and to our surprise, it turned out great. For our first run, we weren't kind of expecting it to all come together, but yeah, we were very successful with our dehydrated meals this year.
Awesome. Was that your own invention, the butter chicken, or was it like?
We just kind of did the basics. So just, we cooked up some chicken. We're like, how long do you have to dehydrate chicken? And then how long do you have to dehydrate sauce? So, because we've seen sometimes you can just like dehydrate it all together, but like we were new, so we kind of just did it all separately and then mashed it together in the backcountry. Because we did a bunch of chicken, and some chicken went with rice, some chicken went with the butter chicken. So we did different things. We like chicken.
Well, chicken's good, and it's actually really easy to do in the dehydrator. Like you just kind of shred it up, spread it out. It dries easily. There's not lots of oils and stuff like that to worry about. So
yeah,
we go ahead.
Do front country camping. We've purchased a Camp Chef oven, and then it also has a stove on top. So We don't rough it when we're in the front country. We're still like minimalist. Like we don't bring a whole bunch of stuff like you see out there because it is kind of overwhelming sometimes and you want to keep it simple. But we do have the nice little ovens. We've done lasagnas, steak subs,
Biscuits.
cookies. We cook some cookies, brownies. So anything you can do in an oven, you can do in that, babies.
And what does it run on? What kind of fuel does it run on?
Just a pound propane tank. Or you can like hook it up to a bigger propane.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we don't skimp when we're front country either. I mean, I've got a Coleman barbecue that we carry. We've got a no bug zone, but we've had a dining tent, all screened in because somebody's a magnet for mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to take if it fits in. I don't care. I don't have to carry it. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's only so much we can fit in the Prius, though.
Yeah,
that's true. That's a slightly smaller payload. Yeah.
The giant cooler takes up probably half the back seat.
Cool. Well, so and you said most of your backcountry experiences are shorter, 2-day, 3-day deals. Do you do any longer ones? And then what about front country? Are you able to expand to bigger trips, like a week or something like that?
Yeah, so we've definitely put on plans to kind of do a week-long backcountry trip this year. We're looking at the Kawartha Highlands. So yesterday while we were at the show, we were actually kind of picking a lot of people's brains on routes and ideas and just suggestions. So that's kind of one of our big trips planned for this year, where we're actually hoping to spend, I think we're looking probably 7-8 days that we're going to get out there and get the boat out and enjoy some time.
Sweet. It's a great park. You'll love it.
Yeah. We did 6 days in the Massasauga. So I think that was, we've done like 5 on the French River before as well. But typically that's like once a year where we get like that week off to go do something. Otherwise it's kind of long weekends. But this year we actually have 2 1-week trips. So we're going to do front country for a week and we're going to split it up between Lake St. Peter and Bonnechere.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do those 2 over the course of like 7-8 days. And then the second week vacation, we'll do the Kawartha Highlands for the 7-ish. Depends on when we want to come out.
Cool. I wouldn't be adverse to doing shorter trips. Pamela and I are doing backcountry trips again. She's doing backcountry trips with me again. And they're shorter ones. We did 3-day Massasauga last year. We're going to do a 4-day. Won't be surprised it's Massasauga again, just because it's pretty easy access for us. It's not a long drive or anything like that. And it's also pretty easy access into the park itself. So we'll probably do that. My jam is kind of like 8 days a sweet spot for me, where jump in the canoe with the kid and just bugger off.
Yeah.
Take a bunch of really heavy stuff, make him carry it, all the good things. Excellent. So tell me about your shine. I know it has a couple scratches on it now. How did you go from renting canoes, if you were doing backcountry, to spanky new one?
Well, we've been very blessed with a supportive family and saving and just being smart. So, obviously renting a canoe is very expensive when you want to go for a week. It can get pretty pricey. So if you look at, if that's something we want to always do is be backcountry goers, like renting a canoe all the time is going to be pretty expensive. So just to kind of bite the bullet right now and invest in a great canoe that's going to last us 30 plus years, if we take care of it and that sort of thing. So we made the decision to invest in a Swift, and it's beautiful. Every time we canoe and paddle, we're just like in awe of its capabilities and just how easy it is, and love it.
We get a lot of compliments on the trail, that's for sure. Yeah.
It's a Kevlar?
Expedition Kevlar. I didn't like the look of the inside of the Kevlar canoes, so I wanted the Expedition Kevlar, which is stronger. It's a little bit heavier, but our canoe still came in 41 pounds at 17 feet. So it's great for us. Like it's a fantastic.
Yeah. We're about the same. It's not Expedition, but it's 17 feet and it's 40 point something pounds.
It's kind of the perfect weight. You don't feel like you're bogged down carrying the canoe, but you still know it's there. It's not going to fly off your shoulders on a strong wind, or you're able to really control it still.
Yeah, Thomas doesn't complain very much.
Yeah. I guess I'm talking to the wrong guy.
I can tell you it took me, because our previous one was a big 90 something pounds fiberglass. and carry two guys carrying it, sure, you're making a sweat, but it's fairly easy to carry. Trying to figure out how to get the balance with the yoke and stuff on the Kevlar one was a challenge for me to because you're changing things.
Mm.
I'm used to it. Like it can't float when it's the fiberglass one because somebody's at the other end. Well, now it's really easy it doesn't take much of anything of an adjustment on you, and it starts going up at the front, or heaven forbid it's coming down. You're like, stop. So that was an interesting challenge that I didn't see coming. I hadn't noticed that anybody else had run into that, because all the other, the YouTubers and that sort of jazz, they're already experienced at doing that. So it's no big deal for them.
Yeah, they make it look pretty easy. And I know they got some kind of rigs too, like with the ropes that help pull it up and down. We haven't added any of that stuff yet. I don't mind, like I carry the canoe. I don't mind having my arms up so far. Maybe it'll get a little annoying after a while, but I put one arm down here, one arm down there. You try to balance it with no hands and see how far you can get till it.
Yeah, I think I got about 6 steps before it wobbled.
Yeah.
And like, Nate, look, take a video. I'm balancing it with no hands.
So are you specifically going to stick to Ontario parks? Are you going to do any sort of crown land camping at any point? Do you have any plans to do other things?
I think Ontario parks is kind of where our heart is. I think that's kind of where we're set. We enjoy, again, some of the amenities are available even in some of the smaller parks. We just like to. I just think having that access to a shower sometimes, or even so be a drop toilet, at least something's still there that you can use. So I think those are some pulls for us. And
yeah, and like we don't have unlimited time, and we really do want to get all the parks off the list. So that's for the next 30 years, I think that's 3 parks a year. So if you don't plan it strategically, like we might only do 1 park a year, and then the next year we gotta hustle our butts and we need to do like 5 now this year. So I think we have enough on the plate with those because we're busy with work and our volunteer things. So there's only so many hours in a day and weekends in a year that you can get out. Crown land, I hear, takes a lot of research and work first, and I don't think we have the time to put into that.
Yeah, it certainly does on land. I'm not an expert by a long stretch. My understanding is paddling crown land and finding sites is much easier, because you're as you're paddling, you're scouting, and you'll see that opening. You'll go, oh yeah, that's a campsite. That's a campsite. So it's a quick pop in. I mean, you're not going to travel as far in a day probably until you become experienced at it, because you want to check out the site and go, yeah, no, I don't want to be here. This is not my sort of thing. I don't want to deal with all those grills over there and stuff like that. So you'll move on to the next one or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm hoping we were talking to Jerry and Shay Shay and Sherry last night. I'll edit that part out.
Yeah.
And we're talking about trying to get together and do a trip, and we're thinking about going down through Point Grandine into there's a giant island when you come out of Grandine into Georgian Bay, and it's got like 25 sites on it. So it's like cool, because that gives us, depending on what time of year and how busy it is, but it gives us a lot of choice on finding the right ones for us.
Yeah. Like we noticed when we were looking at the Kawartha Highlands routes, we're trying to figure out this Deer Bay Creek that goes down towards Lower Buckhorn. But when you come out of Lower Buckhorn, I think it's Wolf Island Provincial Park maybe, but there's some crown camping sites there, and maybe we'll check one of those out on the way out if that's where our route ends up. But yeah, like we're not against it. Like if we had the time to look into something like that, like we for sure would be a part of it, like no problem. We're actually talking with Nate last night, Muskoka Nate, not sure what his last name is.
Nate Smith, but Nate Muskoka.
Yeah. So he was chatting with us about Crown Land and where we go up in my stepdad's some property up north. He said there's lots of Crown Land around there. So I was like, oh, well, maybe that's something we can look into.
Yeah, for a guy that works for Ontario Parks, he does an awful lot of crown land camping.
Mm-hmm.
When you mentioned non-operating parks, is that on your radar as well, to do some of the non-operating parks?
We do check them out in the sense of like we'll go for hikes and kind of walk through them. But from my understanding, I believe you're not able to stay at non-operating parks. So it's just really it's just a for any time that we can. There's even like some in our area here, like there's Short Hills,
there's only Short Hills Provincial Park, which is all we knew of the non-operating. You can't camp overnight there, so we just assumed you couldn't camp in the other ones, but you can camp like the Crown Land and some of the non-operating.
QE2 is non-operating, isn't it?
Yes, but you can camp it. It's a free for all. You can't. So sorry, Thomas and I. Was that last year? Year before?
Year before.
Year before. We did a week in QE2. What is it? QE2 Highlands? I don't know.
Wildlands.
Wildlands, yeah, maybe
Wetlands.
something.
Okay.
Nice park. Plenty of campsites, but it's a first come first serve. You can't book them. You can't anything. You set out. You start paddling. You look for a site. You look for another site. You keep paddling. We ended up having to blow off our last day because we were doing an up and then back down deal. So we camped our way up, hung out for a couple of days, and came down figuring we would do a hard paddle through and camp in the sort of last lake before our exit lake. And we got down there and paddled around every single site, including in through the water that's that deep, and we're dragging and we get there and there it's taken too. So we ended up having to just keep on going because there was nowhere to camp.
Yeah, so that's, I guess maybe, we like the certainty of knowing. Even like some parks have moved to the site specific booking, and I know Algonquin's still lake specific. So it's nice to know at least when you get to where you're going, there's going to be a spot. So that's more like a nice comfort for the backcountry.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm totally in agreement with the amenities. I mean, even something like again, backcountry, because that's my jam. Something like a Thunderbox in good repair. That's not going to happen on Crown Land. It's whoever chooses to take care of it or doesn't take care of it, right? So real crap.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Yeah. There's an interesting one. So you mentioned that Algonquin is still lake. You book by lake. I think that actually changes this year. I think they're changing it to booking sites.
Okay.
Yeah. I know there's Kevin Callan did a little report recently on one of his blog posts, and he didn't say he was disheartened, but he sounded like he was disheartened about just how hardcore they're. And French River, it went used to be 2 weeks. You had up to 2 weeks from when you wanted to go to book, and you book by zone. That's just this year goes to 5 months and books by site as well.
Yeah.
And that one's well, if you've done the French, right? Again, crapshoot. Like, what if all you need is a windy day? There's no way you're getting to your site. So what are you going to stay on the site that you're on? Like, windbound is a thing that happens when you're anywhere near Georgian Bay. How does that play out with it? You've got to move to another site and you can't. So
maybe everybody is then staying on their site.
Yeah.
I suppose there's hope.
Nobody's advancing. They're all staying an extra night there.
Well, yeah, but is it like my idea of windbound might be different from your idea of windbound, different from, Nate's idea of windbound, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know the trip that my mom took us on when we were kids, we actually had to piggyback somebody else's site there in Algonquin because, again, we didn't get as far as she hoped with 3 rowdy kids. So somebody was gracious enough to let us camp off to the side and just for the night till we could get to the site that we were looking for the next day.
That's ambitious to take 3 kids. And so did you all go
For
in
sure
one
it
canoe?
is, yeah.
Pardon?
Were you all in one canoe?
No. I have 2 younger brothers. So the youngest was with my mom, and somehow I was in a canoe with my other brother. And I don't know how we got from A to B because I don't recall knowing anything about canoeing at that point. But I was in the stern, and somehow we made it from point A to B, and here we are.
Didn't capsize and
I remember my brother sitting in the front, and he was he's probably 9 or 10, just bouncing with the waves. I'm like, I don't think think you're supposed to do that. I'm like, sit down. But we were younger and, it was all fun. You don't really know the fear of things at that point. So,
You mentioned having a cat. Do you ever take the cat with you?
No,
no,
no.
no, he's a special little boy. He's got diabetes and he's had some serious surgeries. He's a handful to take care of. So he doesn't really,
He's a house cat.
he used to run wild, but now he's tamed to the indoors.
So you adopted him as a.
We took him from my brother a long time ago. He moved to an apartment, couldn't have cats. So my mom and I took him. And then when Nate and I got married, Nate and I took care of him. And he wasn't always diabetic. He was just the last couple of years he was diagnosed with that. So
last 2 years, 3 years. Yeah.
That's poopy.
yeah, he's got to take insulin shots,
And he doesn't have that thumb to push the depressor on the.
we
Yeah.
got to do it for him.
Cool. You mentioned Acre at Algonquin. Have you done other ones in the park?
Yeah. So we actually did what was that? Probably just a year before we got married. We went with Mark in the Park.
Yeah.
Mark Rubino. So we went. We watched the Rogers special. We loved it. I think it kind of sparked a little bit of a backcountry bug in me on top of kind of what Jen had already ignited. So we actually reached out to Mark and we booked a trip. So Mark kind of put everything together. He put a map together. He gave us 3 or 4 different route options. You pick kind of the challenge that you want. And yeah, we took off on that trip. And that was on Kiosk Lake.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my first experience of the north end of Algonquin and seeing that side of the park. And beautiful, beautiful trip. Great kind of challenge for me, really getting into the backcountry feel with the portages, with the large paddles through huge lakes.
We did a 3,000 meter portage on the first day. No, second day. It was the first thing. I think it was coming off of what was okay, cut that one. What lake was that? Anyways, it was the second day started off with a 3,000 kilometer or 3,000 meter portage. But it was relatively flat. There was a massive hill at the beginning, but then relatively flat the rest of the way. He really showed us a lot of different things.
Yeah, it was challenging for sure. Definitely, it kind of got the blood pumping first thing in the morning, which is good for a full day of paddling. Like when you have a full day of paddling ahead of you, kind of good to get the heart rate up right away and get going.
Tim mentioned in the intro that you guys did some paddling certifications. Are you planning to do any more certifications this year?
Not this year. So we did the Orca basic canoeing 1 to 3. It's like we don't ever plan to do solo canoeing, and if we do, then we'll do level 4 at that point. But we talked about doing the tripping one, the Orca tripping course, just to get that official perspective. And obviously we don't know everything, so we would obviously learn some things from that course and just enjoy learning more about it.
Yeah.
But not this year. It'll be maybe next year.
Yeah, probably next year, I think, with everything we got, with the trips we got planned and just kind of some stuff here on the home front that we're taking care of. It's just, I think it's probably a next year thing. We're also interested in like backcountry first aid, getting just kind of a background in that in case it's always just Jen and myself or a small group going. So it'd be nice to kind of have that background. And heaven forbid something happens, you just want to be able to have that protection. I'm kind of accident prone, so I can see myself kind of managing to hurt myself. So I think it's kind of maybe something to help myself more than anything.
Yeah, or coach somebody else through fixing whatever's messed up on you. I absolutely agree that if you check out what was the name of the company? There was one at the Hamilton show that does wilderness first aid. If you run into if you want to try them out, or if you want any other, Thomas and I did one last year, and I'd be happy to set you up with them.
Okay.
It's a long course, man. Just so you know, it's 48 hours. It's like 2 full weekends.
Okay.
Like we literally went and camped for a weekend, came home for a week, and went back out and camped for another weekend. It's fantastic. I know how to not die now. Like, and the scenarios that they work, once they teach you a lot of what's the right term? Basic skill stuff. And you do practice it, but when they put it into a scenario where you have to dredge up whatever it is and then actually act on it, that's the win. That's what makes it stick, makes it all sort of gel together. It's a really good course. It's
Interesting.
a lot of work, but it's a really good course.
I think that is also incorporated into the Orca tripping program, like the course that they.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think when we were looking at it, like it shows you all the topics they cover, and it's like an intro, I think, to the wilderness first aid. But yeah, definitely something we want to look into because again, we're maybe a little accident prone, so just to take care of. Nate's a bigger dude than I am, so like, what happens if I got to carry this guy out of the bush, right?
We'll be back for you, honey.
Yeah,
Sit
go anywhere.
tight.
Here's
just
some
wait
bench
here.
Hold that. Stop the bleeding. Don't take it off.
Yeah, and if they have to copter you out, it can be pretty expensive if they didn't need to.
Yeah, yeah.
That's excellent. It's, you know what, being able to be, you're away from all the amenities that we live with all the time. So being able to be more self-sufficient in that and be safer in that, I don't see that there's any downside.
Yeah. Because we want to do part of the operating parks are like Wabakimi, Woodland Caribou. So before we try to go do backcountry there, like we want to make sure we're obviously equipped with the knowledge, the experience,
Everything.
tools. Yeah. Before like we're fine. We can just go do this right now. It's like, no, like we need to realize we need to learn some things before we go in the wilderness, like super wilderness.
Yeah, rack up more experience too, because you're going to be bushwhacking at some point where it says there's a portage, there is not, right? Stuff like that. Well, and on that note, have you, at least in part because I have been taking a lot of suggesting about it, have you thought about taking any whitewater courses, like even just to gain a little experience? Because you get into, certainly in Woodland Caribou, but I think in spots in Wabakimi too, you're going to run into it, right? Depending on what time of year, but.
We've definitely talked about it. I think it's something that is going to come up on our radar. It's kind of inevitable. I think, like you just touched on, where you're going to run into a situation where there's rapids, there's swifts, there's white water where you have to actually react and be able to react. So I think it's something that we're going to start looking into ourselves, just to again equip ourselves with those tools to be able to handle the situation.
Because even looking at some of the routes in Algonquin and even the Kawartha Highlands, there's the Mississauga River, I think. So like that's considered a white water river. And like, well, there's portages around the crazy parts, but there's still some other parts that aren't, like there's no portages around and you're gonna have to paddle through that. So we're like, again, like let's not bite that off before, we're aware of how to, read the water and the rocks and, what does that mean?
Well, yeah, and know the strokes, how to as you're reading it, it's like, so this one needs to be back paddling. You got to be able to, whoever's in the stern has to be able to tell whoever's in the bow what the hell they're doing, all that sort of jazz. Yeah, I'm terrified, but I think I'm going to do it. We're doing a 3-day with Greg from Organic Boat Shop in the fall on Spanish River, and it's going to involve some not smooth water. So
yeah, for sure. Nice. Yeah, we saw that posted, and something if he continues offering that in the future, would be a good little weekend to be a part of.
Yeah, well, we tend to trip as family members. We in one way or another, not really do a lot of outside of that circle. I keep thinking it wouldn't be a bad idea, and I probably really enjoyed doing it with guys that have more experience. I mean, folks, it's not a guys versus girls thing. I mean, people that know how to do stuff like that better than I do, right? Because all my stuff is largely, other than taking courses, paddling the Orca courses with Greg, most of everything is self-taught. I'm sure that they taught me how to read maps back in Scouts, but other than that, I figured it out on my own, which means I haven't got it all figured out. So if I can watch guys who do that sort of stuff all the time, I'm learning more stuff. I'm going to be better at doing whatever. It'll be easier. Thomas will be better at it. He'll be able to carry more gear. It'll be fabulous.
He's only going to get stronger as he grows.
That's what I'm saying, right?
You better be done growing by now.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. It's payback for having fed him for 23 years or whatever.
There you go. Yeah.
Because the Sherpa I'd have to hire would be cheaper than having fed him for that many years. For sure. Tell us what parks you've been to.
So they've kind of been all over. We don't have a system as to starting here. It's just kind of you're looking at the map and what feels right, kind of.
It fits in our time frame too, you know.
Yeah.
We can't always travel the 4 hours to go to the Muskokas.
Our first thought was to get all the northwestern parks done while we're young and can drive out there and like not worry about it. But it's a haul. It took about probably 23 hours. We went to Rushing River, which is like it's by Kenora, so super northwest Ontario. So we've done Rushing River. We did Sioux Narrows while we were up in that corner. We wanted to do Caliper Lake, which is all those three were kind of together, but it was closed while we were up there, so that was a bummer. Because again, you drive a day's worth, and then the park was closed. But there was a supercell that went through, and a bunch of tall pines were down, and thankfully nobody was hurt. But like
Trailers were
everything was
damaged,
crushed.
yeah.
Like it was
Fences
nuts.
were knocked down. Everything. Yeah, it was crazy.
But we've done around like Lake Huron. We've done McGregor Point. More on the east side, Murphy's Point, Turkey Point down here by us in Niagara, Algonquin.
Restool.
We did Restool.
Well, how did you like Restool?
Loved it. It was
Yeah?
a great park. Yeah. We hit it at I think we were there for a week.
Yep.
Yeah, we were there for a week and
Yeah.
we hit perfect week of weather. It was sunny, hot, couldn't beat it. It was I think it was like one of the hottest weekends of the summer. So it was
Sweet.
it kind of made
Sweet. No, I keep thinking we should do a front country up there.
Mhm. And they have backcountry sites at Restool as well. So we did they have a bunch of paddling routes. So it was about a 22-kilometer day trip, like out and about. And yeah, they have some little backcountry sites you can, have your lunch on or stay for the night. Who else has?
there's another one.
I don't know. Cut that part out. Where else? Oh, Mikisew. We went to Mikisew in the fall, and that was beautiful. They have a 18-hole frisbee golf,
Cool.
and yeah, couple hiking trails, and it was beautiful. Like
Beautiful park.
it was beautiful in the fall time, and there was a lot of empty sites for tents. Obviously, all the trailer sites and electric sites fill up, but there wasn't too many tenters. So that's a pretty nice park in the fall time. French River, Algonquin, Massasauga.
Yeah.
So slowly chipping away at the block.
Well, that's great. That's a nice rounded group of places to go. All kinds of, varied flora and fauna. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and every park is different. And, what's your favorite park? Is like, we have a great time at all of them. I don't know how you can not have a good time camping. Like Kevin, happy camper. Like it is what you make it. So we love every park that we've been to so far. Maybe there'll be one that we're like, we don't need to go back to that one. But so far, we would go back to all the ones that we visited.
For Tim, that would be Sibbald Point.
We haven't. I've been there as a kid, but we haven't been there together.
don't go in the summer.
It's
way
rough,
too close to
eh?
Toronto. It's just it's insane. It was
Mhm.
was not a Tim experience for sure. Lots of
Aren't they?
I'm glad that people are getting out and taking their kids and stuff, but like the day use, it was a zoo. It was a beach just absolutely jammed with people, cars filling the parking lot, cars all the way down the road, nobody driving the actual speed limit in the park. Everything was just so worn that when it rained, everything just turned to mud because there's so many people cutting through sites and stuff like that. Great. So our kids were shorter. So great kids programming and like tie-dyeing shirts and doing historical things and stuff like that. That was fabulous, but it's too busy. It's not, I can stay home and have that much traffic cutting through my yard or whatever, right?
Yeah. Fair.
Well, good tip. We'll hit that park up in September when the kids have
Whenever
gone
he's back in school. Yep. Yep. That's the one for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
That's it for us for today. Thank you so much to our guests, Nate and Jen from Couple of Campers 905 on Instagram. Please do check them out and check us out on Instagram while you're there. You can also find us on all the other social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're on YouTube and Blue Sky. And if you want to talk to us, you can email us anytime at hi@supergoodcamping.com. That's hi@supergoodcamping.com. And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.